Hello and welcome to the Dinosaw for week 50. Another 7 curious, interesting things I saw last week. So let's crack on. First one is big news from Warner Brothers. So they have announced that in 2021 you can stream every one of their blockbusters on the same day as they release it in cinemas. So this is, before you get too excited, this is only in the US. So international audience will still have to go to cinemas should they be open. Anna Sarnoff, who is the chief executive of Warner Brothers, has said, look, this is only for a year. This is a bit of a test. It's only for one distributor, obviously, and it's only for one country. So it's relatively restricted, but I can't see this not catching on. So where other territories are seeing, for instance, in America, Warner Brothers will be able to start making money, or at least releasing the movies that everybody else is kind of holding back until everything's back in place. So this has been, this has been going on for years and years and years. So when you had VHS cassettes, or if you had DVDs or Blu-rays, there was always an embargo on streaming, or at least releasing a home version of it whilst there is still a cinematic window open. And what's called day-and-date releases were almost like the holy grail, and they would never happen. And now they have. So I can't imagine this not catching on in other territories where other streaming rights are available. So the lawyers out there will be having a pretty fraught Christmas, I would have thought. But for you and I, if we don't want to go out, then this is great. The first one will be Wonder Woman 1984, so that'll be their Christmas release. But other releases will be things like Dune and Tom and Jerry. So all of the big ones only in America, only for a year, and only Warner Brothers. Wacom have released a VR pen, or at least they've released a demo of a VR pen, so it looks nice and finished. However, there's not really any of them in reality, so this is why you're seeing this kind of computer-generated video. So they've really had a call out to creators and collaborators, and saying, like, this is what it does. It's a little bit like Tilt Brush, if you've seen that sort of VR application, but you can write on your Wacom tablet as normal, and then you can start sort of creating things in 3D. So it's compatible with VR headsets, and also if you do things like you put a physical model in front of you, you can trace the model with the pen to get sort of its rough outline, and then sort of do whatever you want later. It does require separate little kind of doohickeys that can track the pen. So a lot of VR headsets are using cameras for hand tracking, for instance. So it's kind of curious how that'll actually work, but apparently it's all compatible with lots of major VR headsets. So if you are a creator, you're looking at this thinking, oh, I know exactly what I'd do with that and I'd like to get involved, then give Wacom a call. So this one is kind of an interesting one in that when we talk about deep learning, you probably heard a lot of sort of general terms about deep learning. It's really trying to recreate the human brain. And we're trying to go towards something called artificial general intelligence, which is if we can map all of the 86 billion neurons in the brain, then eventually we can give it almost any problem a human can solve, and it will make a human output as well. So we can have this kind of universal brain. That's the idea. It takes a huge amount of computing. Obviously, there's 86 billion neurons, right? So Operan has taken a different view, and they've got funding for this as well, which is really interesting to see where that's going. So their view is that if you've got a smaller, more defined problem, why not look for a brain that has maybe used millions of years of evolution to optimize that brain to do exactly what you want. So, for instance, if you are Amazon and you need to deliver the most efficient route possible without double backing on yourself, or using too much electricity or petrol or diesel, whatever, and you need to get back to the depot, etc., etc., then why not look at the honeybee? So the honeybee has 1 million neurons in its brain, much, much more efficient, and it can do probably what a supercomputer routing software can do in an instant. It just does it naturally. So why not try and mimic the honeybee's brain? So that's what they're doing. So the reason I thought it was interesting is the amount of computer processing it will take to run this kind of artificial general intelligence is huge. If you just need what a bee can do, then you can actually do it on much smaller, what they call edge computing chips. So they don't need to talk to the internet and go through a huge mainframe to get their calculations done. So that's kind of neat. So that got me thinking, well, of all the problems your company may have, is which animal, insect or critter does what you need, and therefore maybe concentrate on trying to mimic their brains and their natural responses to stimuli. Yeah, so a little bit deep, but really interesting. You know, the honeybee might be the future of routing software, for instance. Twitch, I haven't done a Twitch thing for a while. Now it's been a bit messy the last couple of weeks in that they have activated DCMA, which is sort of essentially copyright takedowns, a little bit like YouTube does. So if you've ever uploaded a video to YouTube that might have had some other people's content in it, maybe music playing in the background, you will have got a takedown almost automatically. It probably wouldn't have even let you put it up there. So Twitch has pulled the lever and they've turned this on as well. So that basically means two big things happened. If you are a Twitch streamer of old and you have a lot of video on demand content that you've uploaded, then this is retrospective. So it's gone all the way through your back catalogue and it's looked for anything, piece of music, piece of footage that might be copyright, and it's taken it down. So that's annoyed quite a lot of streamers because a lot of their back catalogue is gone. Maybe they were just listening to music in the background, and that has been enough to get a takedown. Now the second thing that happened was the big Fortnite season ending finale thing. There's one of these every now and again. So this was Galactus live event with Marvel. Halfway through it, there was a piece of licensed AC/DC track in there. So this is Fortnite have licensed the track. They put it in the game. Everybody's playing the game, and therefore the music's in there. Nothing wrong with that. The only problem is nobody's told Twitch, and therefore Twitch took down all the streams, wouldn't let you upload all of the footage that you might have streamed. So this is a relatively big deal. There were 130,000 streamers who were streaming live, and they were sort of talking to about 1.6 million viewers. So all of a sudden, this has got into a bit of a mess. So the advice from at least Fortnite was, well, just basically when you stream Fortnite, just turn down the actual sound of Fortnite in the background. So obviously that's a huge part of the gaming experience itself, so it's not an ongoing solution. So we'll see where this one goes. It's only been a week, just over a week since this happened. The Fortnite event was on Tuesday, so this is live, developing as we speak, so watch this space. TikTok have revealed their year in review, so the 2020 best TikToks and viral videos, challenges, those sorts of things. So if you haven't, for instance, seen M to the B by Bella, then you've probably been living in a cage or a cave, and if you have seen it, then definitely have a look at it because there's some surprises in there. Of course, there's the ocean spray guy on the skateboard, but there's lots more beyond that as well. So if you need a sense of where the general sort of youth, I guess, young people are, what they're seeing, what they're doing, what they're sharing, then this is for you. And yeah, there's lots of interesting categories as well. So there's most impactful creators. So it's not just dancing and lip syncing, for instance. You have the nurse in America who was doing a very impassioned speech about wearing masks in the US. And also you've got sort of top niche communities. Of course, you've got things like fashion and food. So if you just want to see what probably the under 25s, I think I'll probably broadly say that, although it's a very blurry boundary at the moment. Definitely go and have a check. There's the similar things that YouTube do every year. There's similar things that Google do every year, so check those out as well. Have a look at the trends of the year. Now this is a slightly strange one. Saw a video and it just blew my mind. So this is all about ESOLangs, or esoteric coding languages. So these are coding languages that don't look like traditional languages. So in the top corner you've got a chocolate cake, for instance, and if you read that chocolate cake recipe, and more importantly, if you actually made the chocolate cake recipe, it would make a chocolate cake. Now if you actually compiled that chocolate cake recipe in a programming language called Chef, it would actually print out, it would compile, and it would say hello world. So that is a full program you are seeing in front of you. And it's really interesting how it can have a step in both worlds, the real world and the coding world at the same time. And depending on which way you come at it, you wouldn't know the difference. Rockstar, for instance, can compile rock ballads into actual code. So for instance, in Rockstar, my heart was ice, so my heart was ice, my heart is a variable. For instance, a life, so you've got a is 1 because it's got one character. Life, L-I-F-E, is 4, etc., etc. So basically 1, 4, 1, 5, 1, blah 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 blah. Basically, it compiles pi. In the bottom corner, you've got something called Pete, which is this colour block thing that it looks like a Mondrian painting, and it uses a physical wandering path through a painting to actually compile or actually put all the code. So that, for instance, compiles as Hello World, and you've also got in the sort of the yellow box in the corner, this is called Shakespeare. Where, for instance, the variables are characters, and you can compile this, and it too will say "Hello World." So you've got "Hello World" 3 times on this page, being compiled in 3 different ways. So it just blew my mind in that if we're trying to get people into coding, there might be some really sort of fluid ways of doing this. There was another example of music coding, even coding using nothing but white space, just using tabs and spaces to actually write the code. So if that's blowing your mind right now, definitely go and have a look at this video because it's just brilliant. There's lots of other things in it as well. And finally, the 5G truthers out there. So these are the people who think that 5G is causing cancer and are burning 5G towers, etc. So 5G is safe, of course it is. It's been through a huge amount of checks. However, if you work in the, I guess, the broadband industry, and you work on a complaints desk, and somebody rings you up and says their broadband router is not working, you might just want to check whether they haven't bought a Faraday cage from the internet. So there is now a huge roaring trade, especially in America, on what's called Faraday cages. So these are, the science of it is it blocks the Wi-Fi. It blocks any electromagnetic radiation from getting in or out. So people are putting their Wi-Fi devices, their routers, in these bags or these boxes. So you can see a picture on the left-hand side. You can put these little bags over the aerials, which is exactly where the Wi-Fi comes out. So you can see from the reviews, it's great and everything, but it killed my signal. You go, oh, well, of course it did. So I thought this was really interesting how there are now an entire industry that's sprung up, and these are not cheap either. So a couple of years ago, if you'd have gone into Ryman's or wherever your stationers are, and you'd have wanted a little wire in basket, it would have probably cost you maybe £5, maybe £9.99. The same thing, which is now a Wi-Fi guard, will cost you $70. So there is a roaring trade taking people basically for a ride. Just to be clear, this does not work. It's not a thing. I mean, it does work to block your signal, but if just don't do it. But I just thought it was interesting out there. It's a dinner party anecdote, and there's lots of sort of faux science that they put onto the web page as well. And it's pretty much the same pictures that everybody's borrowed. So there you go. Anyway, so thank you very much for this week, and I will speak to you next week.